Welcome to the 2717 podcast. I'm Javier, an authentic wedding filmmaker.
And I'm Ashley, a passionate wedding photographer.
We're here to bring Proverbs 27:17 to the wedding industry. As iron sharpens iron,
so one person sharpens another. In this fun series, we're all about sharing experiences and building a community.
Expect heartfelt stories, creative inspiration, and some amazing behind-the-scene moments.
Plus, insights from some truly inspiring guests.
Tune in to connect with us, spark your creativity,
and be a part of a supportive community.
You're listening to the 2717 podcast.
Planning your wedding isn't just about choosing a venue, it's about finding the perfect backdrop for one of the most meaningful moments of your life. That's where Juliana Estate comes in. Nestled in the heart of Lakeland, this elegant estate gives you that classic scenic charm, like a movie set, but it's all yours. Think lush greenery, romantic gardens, and plenty of room for unforgettable moments with the people you love the most. It's a place where every detail feels personal because it's not just a venue. It's where your story begins. See how Juliana Estate can make your wedding day truly yours at julianaestate.com. Thanks for sponsoring today's podcast.
Ho, ho, ho. Welcome back to the 2717 podcast. I'm Javi.
And I'm Ashley. Javi, we should have got you a beard.
You should have. You should have.
If you are watching on YouTube, Christmas has come to the 2717 podcast. We are so hype for our fa la 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 day.
Let's go. We're full of energy,
episode.
guys.
Yeah, we're so full of energy. Christmas is here. The spirit is bright, and I'm excited to dive into today's episode.
Me too. Let's go.
In today's episode, we're talking all about hot takes, and we're going to hit you guys with some wedding horror stories. So we got some really fun segments going on. Let's get right into it.
And today, our whole episode is Christmas themed.
So we are going to dive into some candy cane controversies, some hot takes that have come to our social media. We posted on Instagram asking you guys for your wedding hot takes. We're going to dive in, react to them, and say our opinion on them. So let's go. Let's do this. Our first one is, and I love this one. This one's crazy. Bridesmaids with the comment, quote, "Well, actually at my wedding, ... aren't helpful." Facts.
I agree. It's definitely not helpful. I mean,
Yeah.
every single wedding is different, and it's the bride and the groom's wedding day. And I know brides come from a place of love, but at the same time, it's the bride to make the decision. Now, if she consults with the bride to do something, then that's up on the bride. That's not up to the vendors. But if you're telling vendors what to do and saying like, hey, well, at my wedding, we did this specifically. Well, that's a little bit different because you weren't there in those conversations prior leading up to the weddings, at least for the creative parts, like for photo or for video.
Yeah, and I feel like it's always at the most stressful moments is when that comment is made, and like the bride has already heard like 50 million. It just comes down to there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Like
Very much.
She's already hearing like this idea from this person and this idea from this person, and now all the stress is put back on her because there's so many opinions being made. Yeah, no, I feel like they aren't helpful. I mean, as a bridesmaid, you are just there to support the bride, not say what you did at your wedding and why. And I feel like that's got to be a prerequisite thing. You know what I mean? Talk about that on your batch. Talk about that at her bridal party, like things that you did. Give her tips throughout the wedding planning process, maybe not on like the day of.
Yeah, I agree. I think that can be very stressful for the bride and then for the creators because it's like, hey, we're here to serve the bride and capture everything for her.
Yeah.
So,
and most of the time bridesmaids are great. It's just sometimes, and I feel like it does come out of a place of love also. So that's where it gets a little like, ugh.
I'll be honest, especially if it's like a sister or a family
Yeah.
member. That's the trickier, like, to navigate those situations. But
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's our hot take on that one.
Let's keep it moving.
Okay. This one is a little eggnog spicy.
Ooh, let's go.
Some just want a wedding, not a marriage.
Ooh, facts.
Yikes.
I mean, it's very true. A lot of people get married for a production.
Yeah.
In a sense. And in a way, marriage or weddings now, it's like, it very much is like a social status symbol when you have a beautiful wedding and you have all this event, you have your family friends, and you celebrate, and you have all this, but the end goal of a wedding is the start of your journey for marriage, and marriage is a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifices, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of communication and battles that you got to figure out together as a couple.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to our episode with Pastor Caleb, you should go listen to that ASAP. That is like the key thing with this hot take. Yeah, no, marriage is hard. Marriage is a lot of sacrifice. Marriage is bigger than the production, you know? And I feel like especially in today's society, weddings have been glorified, and as they should be. Like, they're beautiful and they're special, and it's a big thing, like bringing two families together. Like, the overall bigger meaning of it should be glorified. It's just the production aspect that shouldn't be, to an extent.
Like, honestly, your wedding you like, in a way, like, if you put all your emphasis on a wedding day and not the actual marriage that starts on that day, and it goes beyond just
what happens
1 day.
Yeah, what happens the day after?
Exactly.
You're gonna be like, dude, I'm stuck with you forever. Darn.
I know, right? So make sure that you go into a relationship with a good mindset, and knowing that the wedding is in the end all be all.
Exactly. Things. Knowing that, especially with especially with how expensive weddings are, you don't want to do that again, bro.
Yeah, you surely don't. Like, I've heard horror stories where, people gotten married and then within a month they've been divorced, which is the worst part.
Yeah.
Something happened within there. That relationship gets tricky, and you're just like, wow, you wasted that whole everybody's day, everybody's money, whole moment, everything.
And especially because those moments are so sacred for everyone involved, when that is kind of, now we can't look back on that day anymore, and now all of the fun times that did happen before that and everything, that's so sad.
It's nullified.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's just been crazy glorified with everything through social media, and it's so much bigger than the actual wedding.
Agree.
So have those deep conversations with your spouse before you get engaged
or
you get married.
Pastor Caleb's podcast.
Yes, that was so good. He put it into a beautiful perspective, that we love him. He's the best. All right, moving into the next hot take. I feel like these are all rapid fire. Let's go.
Yeah.
Vendors aren't entitled to wedding galleries.
Ooh, that's a hot take right there.
That do be a hot take.
I think if you're, let's say, a photographer, right? Because I think that is mainly on the photography side. But speaking as a videographer, I mean, like, if a photographer shares her photos with other vendors, it's a plus for the photographer.
Sure.
Especially if, like, their style is very natural and colors are true to life, because that's marketing material for all the other vendors out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been to some weddings where every single vendor would have a photo and video team there to capture content for them, and that is annoying. So if the photographer is able to share their photos with all the vendors, I think everybody will appreciate it, and it would just lead to less chaotic moments when you have vendors bringing in their own photo and video team at a wedding.
Yeah. I feel like that's a big hot take too.
I don't think they should be entitled though.
Yeah. It's all about word choice, and I'll circle back into that in a second. But it goes back into that hot take of, like, making the wedding day a production and making your wedding day about your vendors getting content. Like, it shouldn't be. Your vendors should be focused on you. And yes, they need marketing material. Yes, they are a business and they need to survive. And honestly, like, from a from a vendor standpoint, I love showing off my couples and the behind the scenes of the process and everything like that. And showing them off of, like, hey, I got to do this really cool wedding, and this is my cool couple, and everything is so much fun. But when it's puts the couple at a disadvantage because you're more focused on your content than you are about the actual couple and getting their product to them, I feel like that's where the hot take comes in to it a little bit more. Like you said, with vendors hiring content teams, that's crazy. I've never seen that. But
yeah, at certain weddings, like, I'll say higher end weddings for sure.
Yeah.
Because those vendors are, are putting in a big event and they treat like a production.
Right.
they bring their own content media team, even though there's exclusivity, like things in our contracts for videographers, for photographers, as the only professionals there. For the most part, haven't had any trouble, but it's like the more people there is, like, again, you have way too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And honestly, it puts at a disadvantage. And again, like, I don't think they should be entitled to like the full wedding gallery. I'm like, no, that's more about you in terms of photographer, because that's a great opportunity for you to market and create those relationships with those other vendors as well.
For sure. I don't disagree with you. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like I why would I not send my photos?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? For the
but-
venue to use or the hair and
Yeah.
makeup to use, like, especially if I always say, like, just please tag me and, you know, stuff like that. But it's all about word choice too. Like that
Very
entitlement of, because I've seen some venues that they, in their working with venue contracts, they're like, you have to send us your photos. And I saw this recently too on social media, as another photographer was talking about it, of like, this industry is the only one where we give away photos like as free marketing. Marketing costs so much money in every other industry, and why are we like normalizing?
Yeah, because I can tell you this: if a venue asked me like, "Hey, can you send me all your raw clips so that they can use it for their own marketing material?" I'm definitely gonna charge them. Like, there's no ifs, and buts, and like, and that makes sense. Like, you know, photo wise, you guys give that out for free. In terms of video, it's like, no, that's not happening. Because there's work that goes involved, and even to the deliverables, right? There's always costs, but
like if a venue asked for my raw photos, I'd be like, no.
Would you know what? If a venue made you sign a contract in their vendor agreement to release all your images to them,
all images, raws, everything,
would you sign it or you walk away? Or what would you do in that?
I feel like I would have a conversation. I would call them and I'd be like, I'd be happy, because I do give out my galleries to venues and, you know, stuff like that. But I think it's like a nice, raw photos. I feel like that's just a conversation of like, hey, that's a misrepresentation of my work. They're all copyrighted to me. Anyway,
I would even go as if like, my mindset would go as like, you're not the client. You're hosting the event. There's no direct relationship between me and you in terms of payment wise. If you're having the client, let's say like the couple signs a contract where it says they have to release all the photos to them. But the thing is that the couple, depending on your contract, right? Like, I know for mine, my video and everything I collect is owned by me. The couple does not own that.
They have access to the rights.
Personal use. But it has no commercial bearings to be distributed, and they have to ask permissions, and it's up to my discretion. And so if a venue does that, it's like you still have no legal bounds in reality, because we're not the client. You're not my client. And I'd love to work with a venue. If a venue asks like, hey, we want your clips, perfect. Let's work on something that it would be beneficial for both of us, and a true representation of my work. Or can I be paid for that, you know, those raw images or raw video clips in my sense, because you can manipulate it in different ways. That's like, okay, that's fine, but that's not me, but I'll capture the clips and you can create something with your own media team if you have one.
There's pros and cons to both ways, because you do want to create that relationship. You want to get on certain teams' vendor lists and stuff like that. You want to have good connections with who you're working with on a day, because that's going to make your day go super smooth. But also, it is your work, it is your time, it is like your efforts and everything, and you want it to be represented like you. And like, word choice is everything. The entitlement of send me your gallery because I hosted the venue here, and hey, we would love to use your photos. Could you send over a couple? Or that's the other thing too, is like full galleries. You're not using the full gallery anyway. You know, so maybe like, I wonder if we could normalize like giving like a separate gallery to, or like picking together. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like picking together certain ones that would benefit certain people. So like if you put it together, a separate gallery that was only for the vendors of that day, and you put together like really great photos of like the hair and the makeup, and even like the getting ready process photos, and then like labeled it for the makeup artist, and then like some detail shots of the venue, detail shots of certain things for the venue, and then for the planner, like doing certain details, and bigger moments and stuff like that, like the kiss and some couples portraits, like stuff that they're going to use, but also not like the full gallery, because that, I feel like in a certain way, is sacred to the couple as well.
Yeah, and honest, that is true, actually. I mean, if you're afforded the opportunity to be in all those places at once, that's the trick right there. It's like, hey, do you have 2 shooters, 3 shooters that it can't be like systematized to every venue that you can always do that.
Right.
Because contracts are different, or setup times or location are different, unless you have a team of 3 or 4 where it's like, hey, it's a big event or something, you guys can be split up, everybody knows what the role is, that you can really complement everybody, all the vendors there, for a wedding day. But it's very hard if it's just a 2-shooter team and you got 4 places to be on that day. It's
right. And not even per se like capturing BTS of the hair and makeup team or BTS of the planner, more so like the photos that they could use for marketing. So like details of the tablescapes, like throw a couple in there, throw a couple portraits, couple like bigger ones, you know what I mean? I don't know, whatever, 20-25 images that they're not going to use more than that anyway, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Take. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm on video, so
they do so much. I mean, planners do so many weddings and stuff like that. They have so much content from all their photographers. Like, if everyone sent them 25 images that like were really, really beneficial to them, I feel like that would be.
I'll have to say is that for a planner, let's say if you're making content or relying on photographers for the content aspect, like if you do like say 20 weddings a year, how many of those 20 weddings those photographers work actually match your type of look and desire and designing?
That's the other thing too,
which is like, hey, if you have someone that's super moody and you were in charge of design, it's not going to represent those colors accurately,
right?
Or the feel of the day or the event. And that's another thing, like in their perspective, that they definitely kind of deal with a lot in that sense, if they're relying on photographers work for their marketing.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. I don't know,
it's good, like
it's I feel like there's so many different I just hit my mic. There's so many different ways to go about that and ways to look at it from different angles, because I'm not going to sit here and say like they're just my photos and they're just for the couple. Like, I know how much work planners put into the day. I know how much work goes into hair and makeup, and like you're going to want those photos. I have no problem sending them to you. I'm like, I would love to send them to you because I love what we did together and I love what you produced, and I would love for you to market to them. Like that's the coolest thing, is when you see it on a business page and you see it here and there and you're like, that's my work. I did a good job that day,
Absolutely.
So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but yeah.
You tell us.
Yeah, tell us in the comments below.
Here's a hot take.
All right, I'm ready.
Traditional vows don't cut it anymore.
Oh my goodness. I agree with that hot take. I think that this is your one opportunity to really just show how much you love the other person. And it could be private. It could be in front of all of your friends and family. And the way that it is personalized to who you are and what you guys stand for as a relationship and as a unit. I love when like you just use your experiences that you've lived, who the other person is, and tie all of that together into vows. And also, can I say, I love when officiants do that. When officiants interview, I've seen that a couple times, interview the bride and groom, and they say, like, they tie in the things that they talked about. Yes, admired. And it's like, do you like take Michaela and like, do you vow to do this with her every day, or like stuff like that, like things that she likes to do, and the officiant does it. I think that's so much fun, and it just personalizes the whole thing. It makes a tradition into something that is unique for you.
I agree. I like, from a videographer standpoint, like I love it when couples share like their own vows. Even if I don't capture it, that's fine, as long as they did that. It just makes it way more personal for them on their wedding day.
I'm always crying.
Yeah. And
like, y'all got me good.
And the cool part is too, it's like the traditional vows are nice. You know, you can still do in the ceremony, but you can have your own private vows during a first look. That way, and I've seen that done several times where it's like, hey, we're a little bit nervous just to open up in front of everybody, so we're just gonna do the traditional vows, but we're doing a first look. This is another hot take actually that kind of ties into it, but I'm a fan of first looks.
Woo!
Because from a banner perspective, it makes the day seamless, but also for the couple, it just calms down the nerves. They have their own moment together. Sure, it's not fully private because we're there capturing it, but it's as private as you're going to get in a wedding day. And you want to have that moment with one another, just share that time together. You can open up, and it just allows for the rest of the day to go smoother as well. So traditional vows don't cut it.
Yeah.
Got to do the personalized vows, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the best. And you guys you're gonna feel that connection even more.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many. I mean, I write in my notes all the time, like little tidbits that like Luke and I say or Luke and I do that I'm going to put in my vows. Like I just like little things that like, I'm like, oh, okay. Like he really likes this. So I want to tie that into the vows. Like it just makes it so much more personal for the other person that you're reading them to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I see his little like things that he says or things that he likes, and like I'm gonna tie those into the vows so they relate to him more. And it's like oh, I don't know, just shows that like, hey, I am paying attention to you, like I see you, I honor you, and I'm gonna do that for the rest of our lives.
Ooh,
you know.
Yeah, that's really good.
Snap.
I like that part.
Snap.
I see you.
I see you. I hear you. And then totally agree with the first looks.
Yeah.
I always say that to my couples. I'm like, in my like initial questionnaire, I always say like, are you doing a first look and are you set on that decision? Like, if not, you know, but at the end of the day, I ride or die for my couples. I always say that to them. I'm like, whatever you want to do, I will make happen. If you're not going to do a first look, it's still going to be okay. Like everything is going to be captured and everything's going to get done. But if you do a first look, it's going to make your day so much smoother from our standpoint and from like your nerve standpoint. I've never had a bride come up to me and say like, we really regret doing our first look.
Yeah, I think that's non-existent. At least for me, I haven't had that.
I have so many brides that are so nervous in the morning. And then I'm like, don't worry. Once you see him, it'll be great. Yeah. And then they do. And they're like, oh, I feel so much better, because you just realize that like, oh, it's just us. This whole thing is happening around us, and there's so much stress and so much nerves and so much money going into it and everything. But like in reality, it's just about us. Yeah. And you have that private moment together to like sit back and reflect.
Yep.
On what's going on.
And also, if you're having a wedding here in Florida or during daylight savings, first look is a must, unless you want all your couples photos or family
in
photos to be in the dark.
Period.
So
also, this is my hot take. Make sure that you know when the sun sets before you set your ceremony time.
Yes.
Also,
definitely don't set it when the sun is setting down, because exposure is going to go all over the place. I've experienced that a few times.
Yep. We did a wedding together where that happened.
Yeah.
You second shot with me, and it was like the wedding start time was like at sunset. Yeah. And so it just like progressively got darker outside, and I was like, oh, yikes.
It's hard.
Thanks, AI.
Like I have one that happened, unfortunately. I'm like, it's like, oh man, like, you know, it changes the whole color vibes and everything, especially for video. I was like, you know, I couldn't set up my lights because it would have been distracting in the beginning, but then at the end it would have been perfect. So kind of it happens, you know, you bump up ISO and you hope for the best in that sense.
Yeah, literally. That is the first thing I check whenever I'm about to sit down and have my consultation with my brides and grooms. Like it is in my PDF. It's like when is sunset happening? When is your ceremony? And I'll say straight up, like, you're not gonna have enough time to do photos afterward. Like you're gonna need to do photos beforehand.
Very much.
Because if you think about, depending how long your family shot list is, that's 30 minutes. Bridal party's 30 minutes. This is adding fluff also. Family's 30 minutes. Bridal party's 30 minutes. Couples photos, you're going to want 30 minutes to 45 minutes if you want. Yeah. So if your ceremony if the sun sets at 5:30, ceremony's at 5, you have to have your ceremony, and then what? Boom. Done. Yeah, exactly. Because your ceremonies go 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then you have 10 minutes of light.
It depends,
There's no
right?
way. Yeah, exactly.
Depends on the ceremony. End up being like a
Exactly.
Catholic ceremony. If they do full mass, then it'll be a whole hour.
Yes. Yeah.
You
For
know,
Catholic ceremonies, different.
so yeah,
Um. So yeah, first looks are a must in my opinion.
absolutely. You know what? This is another hot take. I've had a few conversations in the past, nothing recent, but it's like, oh, I don't need getting ready.
Mm.
Like they said that for video, right? They still had it for photo. And you don't know how many times I've been like, I need that. Like, I need the getting
Really?
ready for video because then I have no portraits of you, of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, to when if somebody is describing, let's say, for example, like Luke is talking about Ashley, describing in the vows how Ashley is this, that, and the other. If I don't have no just single footage of her, like in a process of getting ready, like for example, if Luke is describing Ashley as being charismatic and energetic and always smiling and laughing, and if I have none of those frames to reference that, it becomes so hard to tell a good story.
Yeah.
So like for example, like okay, sure, like oh, if when they're together for their couples portraits, but like she's not showing those emotions, let's say then, right? And so it's like, all right, the getting ready prep. All right, let's me capture you with your bridesmaids having fun or talking and showing off that energy, and then I can reference it and then show that visually as he's describing that himself through the vows. And so like getting ready is so huge for me, where it's like it's a must now, but in the past I used to like let them kind of set the time frames. Not no more. Like getting ready
Has to be in it.
has to be in it.
That's so interesting. I would
And
have
it's more
never.
important than the end of the day of the night, to be honest.
Yeah. I
Way more
mean,
important.
yeah, for receptions I feel like you just capture there's only so much dancing you can get,
Yeah, because here's the thing, like I can structure a film. The way I structure film is not chronological.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really what's the story behind it. If the story entails like okay, towards the end it goes into reception, cool, but it can start at the beginning and then the ending can be something sentimental. Who knows, right?
Yeah, even just that example is really evident of how your processes are and how you really do take into account like how you build a story from every aspect. That's really cool that you like in the vows and then you want to show what he's saying literally in visual form.
Exactly.
It's a,
That's why
yeah.
rehearsal dinners and welcome party, like, man, bring your videographer out there and your photographer too.
Yeah.
But if you can't bring your video guy,
Yeah. If you can't bring your photographer, still bring video.
this is when we're fighting.
Fight.
I
'em
want
up,
the
put 'em up.
moments. Give me more footage.
Like put them up.
Let's go.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think that you can bust out a lot of video stuff like toasts and all that stuff
Yeah.
at rehearsal, which rehearsal for photography is super fun, but I feel like it's not as essential as video.
Yeah.
Do agree with you on that.
And if you're a creative, right, like photo or video, and you're finding yourself selling 6-hour wedding packages or days for a real full day wedding, and you're missing moments and you don't feel creatively fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
stop offering it.
Yeah.
Bump it up to 8 hours, because those 6 hours is not enough time to capture a full wedding day. And plus, as a like creative, you're leaving like other moments of the day to improve or get better on. Like for example, reception, getting better with lighting, off camera flash, on camera flash, your settings, slow shutter, videographer, same thing when in different ways with lighting setups. Like just make sure you extend that coverage and make it standard. It should be hopefully a standard in the industry. If it's a micro wedding, it's kind of understanding because it's like
Yeah.
it's a smaller, much more intimate. Maybe you don't need the full day for it because hey, we're just gonna have a simple ceremony, a dinner, one toast, and our party is a size of 20, and we're not doing anything afterwards. Like I've had
Right.
those in the
I've had that
past,
too.
and that makes sense.
For
But
sure.
I've also have even small intimate ones where it's like, hey, no, we're doing a full day activity of just 20 of us, but we're gonna be using the whole day, and so we want you there for the 10 hours. I'm like, amazing, like
Yeah.
cool,
So much more to the story.
because there's more activities going on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the 6 hours because whenever I have clients that get the 6 hours, sometimes it is the perfect amount of time, and sometimes I will say like you're gonna miss out on certain things. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna have to have a cut somewhere because you just can't fit it all, and especially you can't fit it all in without stressing you out either.
Yeah,
The bride, at least.
no, I agree.
Having everything back to back to back to back to back where you can't like sit down and think for a second
Very much.
and feel what you need to feel.
So if you're planning a full wedding day, don't get coverage for 6 hours.
Yeah, you got to get longer than that.
8 hours minimum,
Yeah.
for sure.
So good.
Next hot take: micro weddings make for deeper connections. Do you agree or disagree?
Ooh, I kind of agree. I agree.
I disagree.
No! I agree. I think that micro weddings, when you have the closest people to you, you are the most comfortable. You are the most vulnerable to let out your emotions when you have those 20 people that mean the entire world to you. Not that, 100 people don't mean the entire world to you because they are your whole family and everything, but also if you do it, if you have your 20 people, that is your close knit. Those are your ride or die people. Micro weddings are your ride or die people. There's not as much stress. There's not as much going into it either. I just feel like brides are more at ease when they have less going on, if that makes sense.
I would disagree only because I've been a part of a few weddings that are pretty big, but it felt very intimate.
Yeah.
Because it felt like, for example, if you've been to weddings before, sometimes there's a lot of weddings where it's like everybody's in a clique and everybody's in their own little separate groups. But I've been to a few weddings where everybody's just all together, really mingling, like they all know each other. And that family atmosphere, it was like, wow, like it's huge, but it felt very intimate.
Yeah.
And everybody was connected and speaking with one another. I do say this, that if you're having a destination wedding, like I think that creates more room for that intimacy of like that family feel.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if, let's say it's still a big wedding, say 150 people go to a destination wedding and they're there with you for that full week. Like you start creating that atmosphere as a whole if you guys are doing activities and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And so I would disagree because I've seen it and I felt it and I was like, oh, this is good. And so sometimes like I thought about it, I was like, man, like this was a big wedding, but it felt so much like being around family.
Yeah. How often do you get those?
I would say maybe like 5 a year. Because I'll be honest too, I don't do much like smaller weddings or intimate. Micro weddings I've done one elopement of just the bride and groom alone, and I've done one micro wedding.
Yeah, I think elopements are really great too because it's just you and your spouse, and probably your creative that's capturing it, but it's just you and your spouse. Like how much more emotion packed and intimate can you get?
Yeah, it was super emotional, that wedding film. It was really cool too.
Yeah,
it was just very, very emotional for sure.
Yeah, for sure, because this person knows everything about you. So there's no room for fear.
Yeah. But we're speaking about micro weddings versus weddings, not elopement. That's a whole different category.
That is a whole different category. But I think that plays into micro weddings too, because it's just your like closest friends and family, like the closest to you. You know, there's no structure. There's no real structured timeline. There's no place you need to be at a certain time. Like everyone's I just did a wedding not that long ago, a couple weeks ago they just rented an Airbnb. Everyone who was attending the wedding was getting ready at the Airbnb.
Yeah.
So like they're playing Switch in the living room the morning of the wedding. All the girls are in the master bathroom getting ready, helping the bride, like making her feel like a princess. Like I feel like there's nothing that you're missing out on because you're still having those like girlhood moments with your girls, and like the guys are just like all hanging out playing Switch, and then there's no real set time. Like whenever everybody's ready is when we're having the ceremony, and then like we're doing photos out. Like I made some sort of a structure, but like also it was really loose, and like when you have a looser schedule, you have less stress from everybody, I think. I feel like the most stressed out is when you have things you have to do. Okay, I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this. I do love my big weddings. I really do. And I thrive under those situations where I'm like, all right, next up, let's go. But what was the question again? More intimate? Micro weddings are more intimate?
Yep.
For sure. I feel like there's...
See, okay, here. Well, you went on a tangent there.
Yeah, I did. But
you spoke to little different categories. Because on some our rebuke, right? Rebuttal, I meant. Rebuttal.
All right.
So I would rebuttal on the part where it's like smaller wedding or micro weddings, pretty much. are less stressful in the sense because you don't have to rush or get things done.
Yeah.
But what you do have is much more access and input of the people around you to tell you to do things
That's
or certain
true.
stuff,
I
which
don't disagree with you
I've
on that.
seen. Then on the flip side, on bigger weddings, I'll speak to when you have a well organized wedding planning aspect. Then you experience one wedding you actually helped me on where it's like, oh wow, we have so much time for everything. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel stressed. And even though we're moving from different parts, it was very much a breeze, but it also counted because the bridal party was pretty small too as well. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
huge. So it didn't make it that complicated in terms of a wedding, but
Yeah.
I think, you know what, I'll like disqualify myself because I haven't done enough of smaller micro weddings.
Yeah.
However, I do have one coming up, and I'm very, very excited for it, because what I will say about this is that I feel like micro weddings, what they won't produce is it wouldn't feel like a production or event.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it will produce is much more candid moments that lead to a much more like organic feeling of them being together, which then you can describe as intimacy. So
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Because
and it's hard to
yes,
do that with bigger weddings, because
yes,
if there's so much like things prepared, depending on the budget of the couple and what they've chosen to have. If they have a live band, do they have fireworks, do they have certain things going on throughout the days or activities, that kind of takes away that feeling in a way.
yeah. I just wanted to like explain what I mean about like stress too. Like
Yes.
there's less stress, which inevitably leads to more intimate moments because you're just being yourself instead of having all of these nerves and all this stress built up. Like you're just like they're just really excited. Like, and there's not as much. I mean, I feel like there's still probably nerves to like,
Oh yeah.
because you don't see each other yet and like everything, but less we need to be here, we need to do this, and more of what just comes. So they're super fun. I'm excited for you to go to one.
Yeah.
Because then you become a part of the family too.
Oh
I
yeah.
was the only vendor there.
Oh
Like
man. See,
literally, I'm like,
yeah.
so it's just so much fun because you get to literally be a part of
Yeah.
the laughs and the moments and the
I'm
jokes.
still part
and,
of the big weddings, okay?
No, you're not. No,
Yes,
I'm just
I
kidding.
am.
I'm just
Yes,
kidding.
I am. I got proof. Man. I got proof. 8
No, I'm
years
totally
in the
kidding.
business.
I'm totally kidding because yes, your vendor team is amazing, but like there is something about
there is something different. It's for sure,
Yeah.
especially like.
if that's what I mean. If your vendor team is amazing, they'll
Yeah.
feel like family
And
for
I'll be
bigger
honest
weddings
too.
too. But
Like speaking to the intimate weddings, like let's say there is a loss in the family and there's only 20 people here, and it was a recent loss or something, and that's a whole different feeling being there with them in that moment, that present, because that is just different from a bigger wedding, right? So that's way more intimate. Everybody's way more vulnerable. They'll share that, and you have that privilege of being there to capture that and experience that. So yeah, I would say, like I said, like I haven't done a lot that I can remember. I can only one elopement, one micro wedding, and I'm looking forward to the one I have in February of next year, because that's going to be a different feeling, and I'm excited for it because I can treat it much. It has so much more parts to it in a way, in terms
Yeah.
of them being together organically themselves.
for sure, yeah, they're the best.
That's a good one.
That was a good one.
We challenge each other.
Yes, yeah. I know. I was like, we fought about this before. I know we have.
We could go on the contrary. Why is it that when it comes to content, right? When we post, for example, if I post a wedding and it was super flashy, right? It was a beautiful production. It was a large wedding. They had multiple things going on. But then there's a film that's right next to it that was all emotional, heartfelt. Doesn't get the same amount of love and attraction as the ones with the things that are eye candy all the way throughout.
Oh,
Because it bothers
Yeah.
me. Like I will edit and I'll show my wife this film and I'll absolutely love it. And I love it more than the other one because it just feels more heartfelt and more personalized to them. But then she's like, and I'm not trying to downplay you, my wife, Dominique, but it's like, she'll be like, yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's nothing crazy. It's beautiful, but it's nothing crazy. I'm like, that's the point. I want to make it like heartfelt to that couple. And I'm just like, why doesn't it get the same amount of love?
yeah. I don't know. I think it just all circles back to how like romanticized the wedding is and not the marriage is and not the
Mm,
relationship is. How
good point.
romanticized we are about the looks of everything and the production and how it looks instead of how it made you feel, which and it, I think from a creative standpoint, we love the different emotion that is captured throughout the day. Some of my favorite images are emotion based images. And like I'll speak from example. I had a couple weddings. I do like prints at the end, like a little gift. For all of my clients, I put it in like a little box. I get like
Yeah.
25 of their photos printed and some of my favorites from the day, some that I think they're gonna love and everything. And I was going through all of it, and I was actually having like a girls' day with like my mom and my aunt and my nana, family girls' day. And I had just gotten all the photos from like two or three weddings, and we were looking through all of them, and they're like looking through them and stuff like that. And then when I would sit down and be like, oh, I love this one because this, and this happened, and this is why this image was created, they were like, oh, wait, I see it now. Oh, I get what you like.
Yeah.
I know why you love that now. Like when you actually know the story behind an image, it makes it so much more heartfelt to you. And I feel like that's what creatives strive for. And that's why so many amazing photographers have exploded, because like older time photographers, like photographers in like the 60s, 70s, like the black and white photographers that do street photography, is there's a story behind every one of their images. Do you know it?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but you can feel it. And that's what we should strive for. But with social media, it's all just
It's all about is it
it's all
is
about looks, and you
yeah.
don't know the story behind it,
Yeah.
like
It
anything.
is it Instagram worthy? Does it
Yeah.
capture my attention? Does it
Yeah.
keep me engaged? And I mean, like, for me, it bothers me so much because I'm like, man, like, there's so much more to a wedding day than capturing details,
Yeah.
getting amazing, crazy drone shots, right? It's more about what's happening in that moment. What how does the mom feel? How does dad feel? How does the bride and groom, how are they reacting? How are they interacting with their family and friends? The more I've done this, is like in the beginning, I'll say this: when I first got into videography, it was about capturing the superficial type of things, right? Like the details, the drone, the cool shots, making it look cool. But the more I've gotten enrooted in this industry and have evolved as a person, having kids, it's been more about telling the story and capturing those moments, that actual moments, interactions, human interactions, that has made this much more enjoyable and create things that are way more special for couples that they can look back on and feel like, wow, like you have the audio clip of me and my mom dancing or something. Or I,
Oh,
I
that's so
just look
sweet. Yeah.
I got this request for one of my brides. No, everybody respected the rule in terms of no filming during the first dances and stuff like that. And so she had no clips. And so she messaged me. She's like, hey, by chance, do you have any clips of our first dances? We'll take any raw clips that you may have. And one thing I practice, I record the full dances for the first dance, mother son dance, father son dance. And since I mic up the bride and the groom, it's like I'm literally like in that moment, that intimate moment of them
Yeah.
hearing what they're talking about. And it's so funny at times or so heartfelt, where I was like privileged that I had that preserved and I can just send it to them, and they loved it. They were so happy that they had it. And she's like, I love that we were mic'd up because we're able to bring into that moment again.
Yes, like really relive it, literally.
Exactly. And so, you know, that's I guess the way I look at things, and unfortunately social media isn't like that.
Yeah. And I think that if we can just be that for our couples, I think that's really all that matters. Like social media is huge. And do we want to have Instagram worthy photos? Sure. But at the end of the day, is it going to fulfill you creatively? Which one's going to fill you creatively
Yeah.
more? The ones that really touch your heart and are like,
Yeah.
wow, I just captured a real moment for them. Or like, wow, this tablescape is
Yeah.
really going to pop off on my feed.
It's tough because we have to market ourselves out.
True.
And so it's like, what draws in the eyeballs, the attention, to then at least give us, the attention to look at us in the first place.
Yeah, I'll speak from experience too. I did this styled shoot not that long ago, and absolutely amazing. Like, everything there was gorgeously put together. Obviously, it's a styled shoot, but it was beautifully done. And it's definitely like all the details were beautiful. The flowers were beautiful. Everything was at a beautiful venue. And I've posted a couple of those photos and stuff like that. And on my consult calls, a couple of them are like, I really love the wedding that you did at, and it's the styled shoot. And I always say that. I'm like, that was a styled shoot, and I can send you those photos. But like, those are the ones that draw in the eyes. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel like I try all the time to like post my like emotion filled ones, and like maybe I need to be better about like even explaining the stories behind certain ones
Yeah.
of them. But then I get in the call with them and they're like, I'm so family oriented. I love the emotion. Like, and I tell my whole script on my mission and everything. And they're like, I love that you look at life like that and stuff. But then they're like, I really liked your photos from this. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it is like you're editing in the way you captured even that styled shoot was exactly what we wanted. But I've had a couple of consults where they're like, that is exactly what I want. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I want to. But
It's tough, man.
style
It's
shoots
tough.
are beautiful for a reason. So
Yeah. It's finding that balance to show off, the flashy stuff, but at the same time it's keeping it rooted to who the couple is and their wedding day and that experience and all the little in between moments that happen on that day.
all right, for our last hot take, we're gonna dive into the best wedding vendors aren't the cheapest wedding vendors.
Do you agree or disagree?
I have a lot to say.
Me too. I
think
agree and I don't agree, but you go ahead.
yes. Yeah. I think that you get what you pay for is exactly the motto. I think there are a lot of really amazing, talented humans out there that don't have the experience to charge what they should or like
Yeah.
could. Um,
And
so
then
that
there's
plays into
also
it
some
too.
that
Yeah.
charge much that they shouldn't be charging.
Right. So don't pick your vendors off of their price point and or their following. Um
Highly
woof.
agree with that one.
Um yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of different things that we could talk about with this.
I mean, personally, I'm only sticking to the creative
Yeah,
side,
go ahead.
but I would say it's like choose your vendors, like take the time to get to know them, their personality wise, reviews, watch their work.
Ooh, reviews is huge too.
And like if you're reaching out to a vendor, right, and you're showing them a Pinterest board or videos from someone else's work, then hire that other person. Don't
Mhm.
hire that vendor because
Yeah.
that's not what they produce. Hire the person that they produce something that's amazing that you see that resonates with you. Now, if their like pricing is way out of your budget, then it's like okay, then it's fine. Let's reevaluate this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you're looking to find quality vendors, I'll say this is like, like there could be a vendor out there who isn't charging the most expensive packages or isn't certain tier, but at the same time, sometimes they haven't been afforded the opportunity
Right.
to a type of wedding where they can really, show off their talents, show off their creativity with all what they can do. I know that I had a shot. I got an opportunity to film a crazy beautiful wedding, and it allowed me to finally express myself creatively in a different way that then gave me the experience. And so now I understood what that type of event looks like. I was
Right.
able to express the creativity. I was able to capture it. And I added a few more of those under my belt that I can raise my pricing based on that type of level of work that I can produce. And I understood that there was a different workflow for that as well.
That your pricing should match your experience, but also your workflow is what makes you stand out, and what you produce makes you stand out as well. Like you said, getting to know your vendors is so important, and making sure that you vibe with them and you like what they produce all at the same time. I think that's really, really huge. And you know there's a lot of people that have a lot of status and they do produce amazing work and they are really expensive, and I won't say that they're not worth it. I mean, I feel like some for sure are, like, especially if you're getting a killer experience with it.
Yeah.
Um, exactly like what I said, you get what you pay for. Like if you like you and what you said about Pinterest and everything. If you're finding the same photographer over and over again is what you're pinning and you just love their work and they're really expensive, maybe see where you can cut back on other aspects of your budget so that you can get this amazing photographer that you love their work, you love their personality, and you really want to invest in them because you know that they're going to invest back into you
Yeah.
and they're going to give you a product that like you're obsessed with.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
I agree. I will also say this. Don't let the end result like only be your decision making in terms of picking the best like vendor for your wedding day, because if you're picking, let's say, a photographer, videographer, and you get amazing photos but you're really hoping to get a good experience in terms of communication, them walking you through and like giving you the time and felt like it was a curated experience for that person, like if your value is, hey, I just want the end result, I don't care about the rest, then it's like, okay, that's fine, like
Yeah,
pick that, right?
I still think that's really important.
But that is a huge important because like you told me it's when you look at those photos, you want to feel like that experience will come back when you look at those photos and reminded of who's the person that took them. And like there's times where it's like, hey, if you look at a photo and that, let's say the wedding day, God forbid, was just terrible, a whole bunch of things happen.
No.
Every time you look at those photos, you're going to be reminded of all the terrible things that happened on that wedding day.
Yeah.
And so
that is really true. It's really crazy how photos can and video can really help you relive a day, whether it's good, bad, the pretty, the ugly.
Exactly. And so like if you're wanting to have a really good vendor, it's like it's getting to know them and taking that time to know them, and also make a list of priorities that you value. So that way when you go into it, do they check off these boxes? And if they are over budget, are they really worth it for me to extend my budget or cut back on other things that I may not value as much as I do on the creative aspect? So be very wise when selecting your vendor team, especially your creative team, when it's hair and makeup, anyone, because you're trusting them to produce something for you.
Investing a lot of money into it.
A lot of money. And the best compliment I ever get in my final consults is where the couple gives me full creative control. They say, hey, we trust in you, we love what you produce, you've taken the time to get to know us, and I always give them the opportunity to share what they like, what they look at and stuff like that, and who they are and what they want to feel when they watch the film. But just giving me full creative control and trust in my creative process is huge.
Yeah.
Which took time to gain that
to gain the experience enough to be able to create a process like that, to create a mindset of that's how you want to produce. You know what I mean? Because again, not everybody wants to produce, emotion packed, really get to know the couples. They just want to bust out as many weddings as they can and get it done as quickly as possible. And they're not coming from that emotion approach. They're coming from a cookie cutter approach,
Very
or like
much.
This is how you are, a montage approach from video standpoint and stuff.
And I will say this too. It's like you're really hitting on it. It's craftsmanship. How much time are they putting into the craftsmanship of their art? And like, for example, like you think about watches, right? Watches nowadays, okay, it tells time. You got Apple Watches, got all these things, but then you see like a Rolex, or you see, a really high-end brand, and you're like, wow, like that's a nice watch. It just tells the time, but why is it so expensive? Well, there's so many years and decades of craftsmanship going behind it, the history in the experience of making that product and fine-tuning that product. Same thing goes with services. I've been doing this now for 8 years, and you've been doing it here now too as well for 3 years. And so like the more time you're learning, you're gaining that knowledge, the more that you're able to apply and improve on your craftsmanship in that art. That, hey, year one, my films do not look as good as they look now, and the understanding and the approach, it isn't what the camera captures, it's how can you make that person feel comfortable in front of that camera without even pressing record first.
Yeah, especially in an industry where I feel like you need to have as much experience in the industry to produce what you want to produce. Like,
Yeah.
you have to know how a wedding day works. You have to know how to market yourself on a wedding day while also keeping the bride calm, while also capturing candid moments, while also trying to make sure all your gear is working. And also, like, there's so many things that play into it. And if you're going to be a person that like falls under pressure,
Yeah.
like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, there's life experience that needs to happen for you to produce, and in a way that is continuously like making yourself better and stuff like that. I don't know if that made any sense,
No.
but I
will also say this too as well, that you don't want to also hire a person who, like, for example, does not match the vibe of your day. If you're like
True.
black tie event, but then you bring this like elopement adventure photographer or a videographer in that sense, it's like, hey, that doesn't fit the vibe. Maybe they don't do that, and they're giving us opportunity, but then it's a black tie event, but not just to say you show up in boots and you show up and then not in the same type of, hey, you're not wearing a suit or you're not dressed professionally, because you weren't exposed to that, right? If you didn't know that, or even brought it to ask like, hey, is there a dress code that we should have or follow by?
Yeah. And I think that's why niches are so important too,
Yes.
is because you have experience in that area. Like, I'm not going to hire, like you said, to play off the same example, I'm not going to hire an adventure elopement photographer to do my black tie 200-person wedding, because all of their craftsmanship, all of their knowledge, all of their work that they've put into it is probably knowing how to research hiking, knowing what hikes to get the best photos at, helping the bride through that process, like probably bringing tents, probably doing a little bit more of those candid things of like stuff like that, where they're not going to produce this like black tie editorial style that you might be wanting. That's why niches are so important.
Just like you wouldn't hire me and take me up to a mountain because
said I don't know where to go.
I've been to the mountains.
I don't know where to hike up there.
I did a 6-hour hike with a couple, and they're like good friends of mine.
6-hour hike?
Yeah, it was like going all the way up to the summit, and it was insane. I took a 40-pound bag of camera gear, which I regret doing that, because it was like a 10-mile hike, I think, going up and then down. Something like that. Yeah, because we were just going up in elevation in Smoky Mountains. It was insane. It was fun. But
6 hours up or 3 and 3? 3 up, 3 down.
I think it took us 10
even
hours.
worse.
It took us 10 hours. It was a full day.
Both.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Yeah. It was insane.
Don't want to do.
And like I'm walking like next to the side of a cliff, and like it just goes straight down, because I'm fearful of heights.
Blech.
Luckily the groom is like one of my good friends, and so it's like, hey man, I'm gonna need your help here. Don't leave me alone.
What? Huh? I said, you got a golf cart or something?
Give me golf carts wouldn't take you anywhere there.
No, I know.
It's only by foot. But honestly, like, you wouldn't hire me if I'm used to doing big events, used to doing, wearing suits and ties and going here. You wouldn't take me out there. I would be fish out of water. I think I would find like refreshing in terms of like, oh, this is out of my comfort zone creatively. Yeah. But in terms of me being an expert, I wouldn't be the best expert.
Yeah.
I'll be vulnerable. This will be a learning opportunity for me, because then I would have to learn how to research and learn the rules in terms of hiking or even flying drones at national parks. There's a lot of rules when it comes to that. Getting special permissions and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, like permits and stuff. Is
all
so
the
crazy.
permits, going through it. There will be a whole educational element that I won't be able to serve that couple to the fullest. Now, if the couple takes a chance and I express that, then that's on them giving me the chance and opportunity.
Yeah, that's so good. All right, guys, that's about all we have time for. Thank you guys so much for tuning into a 2717 Christmas. We're so excited for the Christmas season, and we have a couple weeks off. So we will catch you guys back here in 2 weeks on January 6th with our next episode. And thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for watching. Javi, where can they find you?
At sundial.creatives, or you can visit my website at sundialcreatives.com.
And you can find me at Ashley Jade Photography LLC on Instagram and TikTok. And you can find us at 2717 Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, 27 the numbers, 17 spelled out. And also wherever you guys listen, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, anywhere. We are so thankful that you guys are here. Merry Christmas. We will catch you guys in 2 weeks, okay? 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks off. So we will catch you guys on our next episode on January 6th. We hope you guys have a beautiful and blessed holiday season, and we will catch you guys very soon. Bye.